Hello and welcome to today's module. Today we're talking about setting the rules for a trust or a foundation and also setting some guidelines for the trustees or the foundation council. If we go back to the beginning, you remember that one of the great things about trusts is that a lot of the time it was possible for the founder to keep control over what was going on. And for most people, that's pretty important because it may be that we create some legal structure, but losing control over your own assets is quite a big step to take. And that's why in most cases with trusts, we're able to design structures that mean that the founder can keep the amount of control that they need to keep. Let's look at how that works. So we start with a fixed trust. Like I said in a previous module, there's not really a modern way of doing things, and it's not very common, but it's a simple way to explain one approach. And one approach is to write rules and to write all of those rules into the document, the trust document. Usually it's called the trust deed, but in different countries it has different names, the formal trust document. So in this particular trust document, the rules say that Doris gets 1/3 of the money when she's 25 years old. And in this way, the founder can make sure that what she or what he wants actually happens. And that's great. Of course, you can't write rules for everything. Sometimes situations will arise where there is no rule. And when there is no rule, it very much comes back to, here are our friends, the trustees, it very much comes back to the trustees and them using their discretion to decide what to do, their common sense. That's a fixed trust. But like I said, in real life, not so many fixed trusts. What's much more common is a discretionary trust. And remember, we talked about this in the previous module. We have the founder who creates the trust. We have the trustees who look after, administer, manage the assets in the trust. And then we have a group of beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries who are the people who will one day benefit from the money in the trust. But unlike a fixed trust, discretionary trust does not have any rules written in the trust documents that tell the trustees when to pay the money and who to pay the money to. So the question then is, as the founder, how do you know that what you want to happen is actually going to happen? So part of it comes back to the words that we have in the name of this thing. Okay, it's a discretionary trust, and we have the first word that we have is discretion. Discretion means the trustees, not the founder. The trustees have the discretion, the right to make decisions. They can decide to do things, or they can decide not to do things. And the second important word that we have is the word trust. And I know it's the name of the structure, but also it's an ordinary word which has an ordinary meaning. And if you're creating a trust for some reason, you choose trustees. And I have to say, a big part of that is that you need to choose people that you trust to do the right thing. You trust them to do what you want them to do. And to be honest, for some people, that's actually enough. They say, I have given my trust to my trustees, and I'm sure they will do what I want them to do, so I'm fine, I'm happy with that. But for most people, it's maybe not enough. So, the first thing that founders do, like they did with the fixed trust, is they create a set of rules. And I'm going to have to move myself again because I keep being in inconvenient places. The rules for a discretionary trust can be found in the trust documents, the trust deed or the deed of settlement or the official formal legal documents. And if they're in those official formal documents, then those rules are binding on the trustees. It means the trustees have to do what the rules say. The second place that the founder can put the rules is in something called the memorandum of wishes. And what this is, it sounds a bit strange, but this is basically a letter that the founder writes to the trustees and says, hey, Fred and Susie, as my trustees, here are the things that I would like you to do. Here are the rules that I would like you to follow. But there is a little difference between this and the trust documents, because the trust documents are an official, formal, legal document, and the trustees have to follow those rules. The memorandum of wishes is basically sometimes called a letter of wishes because it's actually just a letter. And it's more like guidelines or suggestions. And Fred and Susie should probably follow those rules, unless there's a really good reason not to, but they are not legally bound to follow those rules. So, let's think about these two documents, and let's think about how do you approach this problem by looking at some rules. So we'll start with the example rule. We have an aristocratic family, and our rule that we want to put into our family trust is that we never sell the castle. Because the castle or our estates are the core to our family and our family tradition. And that's a very, very fundamental rule, and that's a rule that I would expect would normally be put into the trust documents. But you have to keep a little bit of an open mind, because you don't know what's going to happen. It seems logical never to sell the castle now, but who knows what the future holds. So maybe you need a rule, but then maybe you need some kind of exception. For example, if there's going to be a prison built right next to the castle, or a motorway is going to go through the castle, or the family situation changes so much that nobody wants the castle, or there's inheritance taxes, which means that there is a financial need to sell the castle, there needs to be somehow some flexibility. Absolute rules are quite often problematic. Another example, which we see quite often, never sell the family business. Very similar problems arise, and even in the case of businesses, even more so because of the changing nature of the business environment. So if you were in the business of making typewriters or quill pens, then maybe selling the business might have been a good idea. So you can put these rules into your trust documents, you can make them fixed, firm and binding, but you still need probably to leave there a little bit of flexibility for the trustees in the future, because, as I keep trying to remind people, 100 years is a long time. This is a picture. I'm making this video in the year 2024. This is a picture from 1924, and it was a different world. They lived different lives from us today. And if you imagine creating a trust 100 years ago, it would have been very hard for them to foresee the things that have happened in the 100 years since then. Not just World War II, but things like the internet and globalization and so on. And I say 100 years because a lot of trusts are designed to last 100 years. Some trusts are designed to last longer, but most trusts are designed to last quite a long time. So, yeah, we can put these fixed rules into the contract, into the trust deed, into the settlement, whatever we're going to call the document. But sensibly, we need to create some exceptions, some leeway for the trustees. Another rule. Don't sell the family business for 10 years. This one is quite common. What founders do is they decide that after they die, they want to avoid family conflict. They want to give time for people to settle into new roles, into new realities. So they say no immediate sale of the family business. That's quite a good idea. That one, again, probably goes into the trust documents because it's quite an important rule. But again, you really don't know. So again, you need some flexibility. Okay, next rule. We have pay $2 million to Doris when she's 25. This one I would not put in the trust documents. And we talked about this the other day in our earlier module about fixed trust and discretionary trusts. If we put this rule, then we have to pay her $2 million when she's 25, even if she is on drugs, even if she is in the middle of a complicated divorce, even if she is bankrupt. It's not always a good idea. It is much, much better to just say Doris is a beneficiary of the trust, and to put this rule into the letter of wishes so that the trustees know that's the plan. And when they get to that point, they can then decide, is that a sensible idea or not? And now you're asking, that's great, but how do I know that the trustees are actually going to do that? And we're going to come on to that in a little moment. Sometimes it gets even more complicated, so people say things like, pay $2 million to Doris when she's 25 if she's living a worthy life. What is a worthy life? People sometimes say if she goes to church every Sunday. So all of these things, it starts to become quite complicated. What does it mean? Who is the judge? How do I measure that? Don't put these things into trust documents because they are asking for an argument. Doris will say that she is living a worthy life. The trustees will say, we don't think that you are, and you end up spending a lot of money on legal fees. Support the educational needs of my grandchildren. That's a really nice one. It's a very common one. Could go in the trust document in a general way. And then there might be some more detail in the memorandum of wishes. Always observe Christian principles in your decision making. Again, it's a general comment, could go into the trust deed, could be some more detail in the letter of wishes. These more general things, they are fine because they are, by their very nature, they are already guidelines rather than strict rules. ESG principles, it's a really interesting one. And I'll take a little detour here to talk about something that happened, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, in one of the Channel Islands. There was a case where there was a trustee, and the family asked him to pay some money from the trust to a charity. And that was fine. The trust documents allowed the trustee to do that. And the trustee said, okay, that's great, I'll do that. And the family said, look, there are two ways you can make this payment. Without going to the technical details, you can make this payment in way number one. And if you do that, there will be no tax liability. Or you can make the payment in way number two. And if you do that, then there will be tax on this transaction. Now, what most trustees are going to do, if they're good trustees, is they're going to say, well, I've got a choice of a way that pays tax and a way that doesn't pay tax. So I'm going to choose the one that doesn't pay tax. But this family said to him, no, actually, we want you to choose the way that pays tax because we, as a family, want to. We're wealthy. We're a wealthy family, and we want to give back to our society. So again, if you want to do things like that, that's absolutely fine. But you need to put rules somewhere into your documentation to tell the trustees that they can do that. And also, the other factor that's quite important is to actually protect the trustees. Okay, so we are relying on the trustees. In the case of Doris, we are saying to the trustees, you have the power to pay money to anybody in this group anytime. We don't tell you how much to pay, at least in the trust documents. But in the memorandum of wishes, we have written, we would like you to pay $2 million to Doris when she's 25. How do we know they're going to do that? So the rules of the trust don't say anything about that because we didn't want to create a fixed trust. The rules just say, here is Doris, she is part of our group. You have the power to pay money to anybody in the group anytime. But we, or me as the founder, I want to make sure that they really do pay her the money when she's 25. So I put it into my memorandum of wishes. But like we said, that's not actually binding. Problem. And that is why it is very, very common to see in discretionary trusts an enforcer, a supervisor, a protector, different names, call them what you will. This is a person whose job it is to make sure that the trustees do what they are supposed to do, that they do what the trust documents tell them to do, and also that they do what is written in the memorandum of wishes, unless they have a particularly good reason not to do that. When the founder is alive, you don't need this person, because when the founder is alive, the founder has the power, and the most important power, we didn't talk about it, but the most important power is the power to fire the trustees. The founder has the power to fire the trustees. If the trustees do not do what the founder wants them to do, the founder says goodbye and replaces them with somebody who is more cooperative. When the founder is gone, then the protector or the supervisor enforcer becomes suddenly much more important, because it is the supervisor who is standing in the shoes of the founder, watching the trustees, and most importantly, making sure that the trustees give the $2 million to Doris when she's 25, unless there's a really good reason not to do that. So that's great. We have created this external supervisory person. For some people, it's a supervisory body. It can be a council. It can be a supervisory board. It doesn't really matter what it is that you create. But we need a way to make sure that this position is maintained into the future. And I very often talk about the idea of building a chain. Because if you appoint Fred Bloggs as your protector, that's all well and good. What happens then when the founder is gone and Fred Bloggs then also dies? Who's the next protector? And remember, the protector is important, because the protector has the power to appoint the trustees. So who is the person who appoints the next protector? And the answer is that it could be the trustees. But then you've put the fox in charge of the henhouse. Because then the trustees have the power to appoint the person who has the power to appoint them. What you have accidentally done, if you do this, is you have created a democracy, or potentially a democracy. Even worse, you could make the decision as to who is the protector, put that in the hands of the beneficiaries. And then the beneficiaries might all decide, hey, it would be really great if we just cancelled the trust and took all the money, so we'll appoint our friend Bob as the protector, and he's going to choose trustees who will do what we want. That is why a good trust design, there will always be a chain. There will be a method to make sure that the protector, whoever it is now, has already appointed the next one in line, and maybe even the next one after that. So if something happens to the first one, we have this continuous chain of independent people whose only job is to make sure that the trustees follow the rules. In a later module, we're going to talk quite a lot about family constitutions and family councils. And there is an interesting interrelationship between protectors and family councils. Again, we do not want to put the family council completely in control, because we will create a democracy and things will happen that are not consistent with what the founder wanted. But more often, the protector is a part of or a member of that family council. Like I said, that's covered in a later module. So that's how rules are written, where they are written, and how they are enforced. and this applies for trusts, and it applies equally for foundations. I hope that's helpful. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found that useful and helpful. If you'd like to see more of this, please like the video and please subscribe using the button that you can see just there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and thanks again for watching.